Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the Behind Company Lines podcast. Today we have Jonathan Fishbeck, founder and CEO of EstateSpace, the number one cloud ERP for the ultra high net worth market to manage non-financial assets. Jonathan, I'm so excited to chat with you and get to know you a little bit better. I know you have some cool, not only progress that you've made, but also some really exciting plans for this year. And really just excited to hear from founders how the whole process has been from the building of the product to the conception of the idea to where you are currently and the traction that you're facing. But before we get into all that with EstateSpace, what were you doing before you started the company?
Yeah, Julian, thank you for having me here today. And definitely that's a great lead-in question. So prior to this company, I'm a three-time founder. So this is my third venture with EstateSpace. Prior to this, I was a general contractor with a construction management firm. And we served the ultra high net worth marketplace. So I was a services driven business. We were doing anywhere from like 5 to 15 million a year in recurring, very successful in our space.
Yeah.
And it was kind of through those experiences that led to the genesis of this latest venture. And for me, that was most exciting because I come from a technology background, a technology family. So to be able to solve a problem as big as what EstateSpace is solving through technology to help as many people as possible, that was a very exciting kind of pivot point in my life.
Yeah. And I'm always interested to hear about the founder's journey from going through multiple companies that they built. What was the transition like from the last company being more service heavy into more of a technology kind of using software as a service, essentially?
Yeah. So I'll start with the best part about it, right? The best part was that we had a services mindset. So that was our biggest strength and our greatest weakness. So it was super hard to transition. My experience is probably similar to a lot of other SaaS founders that I've met with that left service where I'm doing really well in this space. It's going to translate to this other space and it's going to be great. It was pretty difficult. It took me about probably 2 to 3 years to really like shift my mindset away from service and then really start to say, okay, great. We're going to take this business. We're going to make it SaaS and we're going to scale it. So I think from an overall time frame and talking with other founders such as yourself, it's better to kind of slow down to speed up in the beginning of starting something and knowing that, I want to reinvent myself. I want to do this new thing. I want to get into technology. But yeah, it was definitely, there was a lot of different challenges that I faced along that journey.
Yeah. And what were some of the challenges? And specifically, you said transition from services to platform, you had to change your mindset. And I'm assuming some of the offerings might have changed as well. What did you essentially have to eliminate from the service point of view for whether it's time or resources or investment? And what did you gain in the addition of building a software focused company?
Yeah, so I think the thing that I had to let go of was that I had scaled a business and revenue with people. And so that doesn't work for technology. So that was probably my biggest mistake and my greatest realization. My biggest takeaway was that when it came to how to really learn through that process, kind of learning and maturing and understanding how to scale a SaaS platform with a marketplace. And so I think that the coolest part about that, and again, why it was our greatest strength and greatest weakness and why it's our best strength now is that we actually are winning in our space because of a services mindset, because we have a marketplace with providers that serve our client well. And that we understand that with what we're doing from a tech perspective, it's fantastic, right? It makes a ton of sense, but it's to a large degree useless for a lot of our families and a lot of our clients if there's no people part of it. Having kind of made sure that we kind of shepherded and took with us the best pieces of service, it was kind of like letting go and then kind of restructuring and kind of redeploying those services in a way in which others did it while the tech company kind of scales one way, our service providers scale another way. What we've learned is that no matter what service you're in, it's just a different kind of SaaS. It's service as a service. Yeah. So we work with our partners to find a simple way in which people can buy them. So if that means they sell by the square foot or they sell by blocks of time, like whatever that unit of measure is that the client can ultimately easily understand, know what they're getting and buy quickly. And I think you see that some people might call it managed services, but I like to have our partners do SaaS, just a different kind.
Yeah. I like the service as a service model. That sounds like it's in the right direction, especially for your audience and how to cater to them. and describe your audience a little bit more and your customer, I guess. Who are these? What is an ultra net worth asset or property or individual? And then also, what is different about servicing them than, say, the average individual?
Yeah. So our marketplace, we came from service and we knew that our clients in that business would translate to this business. So we served ultra high net worth families. So typically they're going to have a certain amount of liquid assets is how you might define that. But these are people that are just people. They have a lot of complex assets. They have a lot of holdings, both financially and non-financially. And our opportunity was not just serving them, but also serving their family office. Because we did private service and we worked with both sides of our clients' world, we really understood the problem, right? It's an interconnected problem across their ecosystem. And so we knew that EstateSpace would need to be an interconnected solution. And so that's something that we've been able to achieve and do really. The people that we serve are going to be within that space, right? So we're a B2C, but we're also a B2B. So we're able to work with direct to client, direct to a single family office. We can work with multifamily offices. We work with luxury providers. So we're dealing with top construction management firms, property management, estate management. So if you think about all the people that directly support that individual, those are also our clients. And we wanted to build a platform that just worked in all directions for all people, because what we ended up finding was when you start to look at kind of the six main personas that in our audience that we're targeting, they all have common threads of need. And so it's like, great, let's build out those common threads. And then we can start to build down and really build out additional things for each one of them more specifically. And so that's kind of been our approach.
Yeah. What's that common thread that all the six personas have?
Yeah. So it's going to be the three main problems, right? There's a problem with communication. There's a problem with transparency and data privacy. And then there's a problem with expectation management. In order to solve those things, we really focused on building out the platform to not only handle direct communication, so messaging, channels, et cetera, but also to be able to have basically the system do the administrative work of reminding, or somebody said this and somebody did it, and then making sure that they're notified. So kind of filling in for that, automating the system admin, if you will. And that was a big thing that we did. And then everybody owns properties. Everybody has non-financial assets. So you can think cars, arts, jets, et cetera. So we're able to manage all of those things for those people, for all of the people within in that audience. And then where are we now? So now we're working on building out a project management suite where 4 of the 6 personas need that thing. So it's like, let's that common platform and understanding where it's of value and there's an ROI for all of our clients. And then let's start to dig deeper and start to solve some of the next hardest problems. Because as you can imagine, our clients have the financial capacity to continue to grow. So no matter what the macroeconomics are in the world, they're still buying properties. They're still remodeling. They're doing construction. So it's making sure that when you ask to kind of round this answer out for the question is we have to make sure that we do a really good job of asking the right question, listening to the answer, and then saying it back to make sure that we really understand what it is that we were told. That's something that we excel at because we've been doing that for about 15 years now. And so we took some of those really great attributes that we had built in our services business and we brought that to EstateSpace. And what's been great is that what that ends up leading to is a ton of relationship capital, right? Yeah. The thing that's most important to us. So we still know everybody. We're open to conversations, even though we're tech, we don't hide behind a tech veil or anything like that. Yeah. Like we are always available and can't wait to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah. In regards to just thinking about the different assets in the management process, whether it's physical assets or excuse me, like assets in terms of estates or art or all these other different things that someone could have. What was the incumbent before you? What were people doing? I can only see in my mind like a spreadsheet, or was there another tool that was helpful? How were they managing their assets before EstateSpace?
So in large part, they weren't. Yeah. Their holdings are so complex that as we were managing this for clients, there was no way that we could even begin to transition, right? All the tribal knowledge that we had as a company, we could never teach somebody else. So yeah, I mean, you you're dealing with 20 different technologies, 5 different communication mediums. Like you're using Excel, you're using Google Docs, you're trying to use all these disparate technologies. And what that ends up leading to is a very broken deliverable, right? So I'm trying to do the things across these 20 things, and it becomes extremely people intense. And so that was part of the opportunity and the realization that we had, is to knowing that we could really solve a lot of these problems with a platform that would interconnect a lot of the things in which we're disconnected at that time.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about the traction. How many individuals are you servicing right now? How many providers do you have on your network? What's exciting not only about last year's growth, but moving into this year, what are you particularly focused on and excited about?
Yeah, so last year was kind of our coming out party, if you will. So we launched our commercial product in April 30th of last year. And so at that point, you can kind of say that we were at or close to zero when we start to talk about numbers. Right now, we just crossed 300,000 in recurring revenue. We've got just about to hit 100 clients and 1,000 members on and so that's exciting for us, because at the end of the day, what we found was that getting clients on the platform and giving us feedback is what really made us like that. That's accelerated our growth, because they're telling us what they need, and then we're delivering that. This year, super excited to 5x those things. So I'd love to hit 1.5. I'd love to hit 5,000 members, and I'd love to have between 300 to 500 clients on the. So that's and what I'm excited most about is the thing that I don't know, right? Which is like, we're going to have like this organic growth that I'm not even sure what that's going to look like, but I'm excited for kind of that part of the company in 2023.
Yeah. When you think about the different ways to expand the business, you think about client acquisition, you think about whether it's hiring individuals to build out more of the platform and the services, or expand your services and features. How do you balance all that out? Are you having conversations with your team as founders? It's a dynamic process, and I think we can all get pointed in many different directions to get excited about the next new thing we can start building on or working on. But how do you prioritize it? Do you list it out? Do you go with your team, kind of have a focus, and then an execution strategy? What's your process for figuring out, okay, this is what we're prioritizing, and once we hit this milestone, we're going to move on to the next thing?
Yeah, so I'm from a corporate perspective, I believe in horizons of growth, and I believe that each horizon has its own challenges on scale and people and process. From a overall day-to-day, my focus is always to have a great day-to-day and make great days into great weeks. Yeah. As far as my time, I time block. So I spend 80% of my time as our CEO, and I'm focusing on capital, corporate, and governance, right? And then 20% of the time I spend on product ownership. And so I spend less than 1% of my time on the sales and marketing piece. My greatest successes are coming through my other executives in the company and their success. So prior to this year, just as soon as like December of last year, it's probably spending about 95% of my time in product development. I had to make sure that we really nailed what it is that we were doing and what we were going to deliver to a point where I had the confidence to step back. Yeah. And so a lot of other founders may find that same thing. You might be engrossed in getting the product developed and the platform out, but at some point the company needs a CEO, right? You need to make sure that you have runway. You need to make sure you have good corporate hygiene and governance in place, right? You owe that to your shareholders and to your employees and your teams. So for me, that transition, again, it was just kind of a shift of time blocking. I've always been a huge fan of doing that. And I rarely have meetings over 45 minutes. I safeguard and bookend my weekends. Like I'm very much focused when it comes to making sure that if I allocate my time right, that most of the time, things are going to just happen, but I'm going to at least give myself the time to get my work done and really focus on my 80% more than anything else. Yeah.
As a founder, what do you know now that you wish you learned or started learning earlier in your career as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So great question. But one thing I would say is that when it comes to time management, it's super hard, right? Like I get a call right before this and I'm talking to an investor who wants to be a partner, where it's all exciting. And I think it's just being able to take a breath and like just stay methodical and stay focused. Like it's a lot easier said than done. But yeah, no, I mean, as far as the number one thing that I'd really wished I'd learned maybe in previous ventures was to get a great advisor.
Yeah.
But in the space that I'm going to be in, pay for that advice because you get way better advice for paid services.
Yeah.
And be able to have done that and spend. I'm a huge fan of planning. I believe everything's 70% planning, 30% execution. But
Yeah.
getting advice, if I would have done that up front, I'd probably save myself about 18 to 24 months of churn.
Okay.
Just personally in this company and my transition, had I had done that on day one. So that's kind of the number one thing that I'd wish I could have told myself. But at the end of the day, it's my journey. It's a cool story. And I'm just glad that I can now say that I know what that one thing is with confidence, and it serves me well today.
You talk about this conversation with investors, and one, being a multi-founder, how do you seek out the right investors and the right partners? What is your kind of decision-making process? And then secondly, when you do find that partner, how do you manage expectations in that relationship? Because ultimately you're the decision maker, you're focused on the company, they're focused on the company as well, but in a different way that is different incentives for them than for you. So how do you manage those expectations once you do select that partner?
Yeah, so we were bootstrapped. We pretty much primarily been bootstrapped. So we've been kind of family founded and funded. Now that we're starting to grow our cap table, now that we're starting to find new investors, I've always found, I keep it simple, Julian. So basically I'm looking for somebody that's a good person, right? They're just a cool person that you would want to talk to and be around. It's natural. It's easy. I want to surround myself with people that have integrity. And so those things might be easier to find. I think the hardest thing and kind of my most important point is making sure that they care about what it is that we're actually doing as a company. Like, I want them to have a vested interest on multiple dimensions. And so I've found that those investors are much better fit for me, because then that leads into, how do I manage the expectation? Well, I do what I said I was going to do, right? This is the company. This is our board. This is what we do as a business. I can support them in many ways. They could be an advisor to the board. They could just observe. But in order for us to stay special, we have a very simple board. It's myself and it's my chairman, and we are able to maintain agility. We make great decisions. He's that advisor I wish I had 6 years ago instead of 3.5. And it's just honesty and transparency, right?
Yeah.
That's how I manage all of our shareholders. That's how I kind of manage everybody in my life. At the end of the day, my why every day is personally and professionally the same. It's to get up and help people, right? And so I'm doing that by following through on those things in which I said I was going to do.
Yeah. I'm always curious because you have a very specific or a very interesting insight into markets. You said a lot of your clients, even in a bear market, they're still having transactions done. They're still having projects completed. Within their insights, what have you learned, or is their perspective when you're at that level in terms of how you take on a bear market? What are some strategies that you think about maybe as an average individual that you're not aware of until you reach that level? What kind of advice, or how do they view markets and bear markets, and how do they strategize to come out on top in a way?
I would say that I'm not a financial advisor, so I'll lead with that. But when it comes to kind of the 9 financial assets in the space that I am in, as an owner representative, I have worked with clients. I've been a fiduciary for them to help them deploy capital and to real property assets and the things that I know. So from a bear market perspective, I kind of start to see some of the similarities from previous times in which this has occurred in the market, where I see a lot of our clients investing in real property assets, right? So buying real estate, doing improvement projects, kind of shifting, possibly changing the way in which they might insure those things, right? I see a lot of different strategies across their portfolios on our side. And through COVID, that's actually, while it was a pandemic and it's been a difficult time for the whole world, it's really boosted our space. It's really made people think, okay, well, I have all this stuff, but I'm not managing any of it. Like, what happens if something happens? So it really was maybe a great point of realization in history for us. And I think we were just kind of maybe more lucky than good there, but it's really brought attention to the fact that we have a lot of things. They have a lot of complex holdings, but they're not being properly managed with technology. Their advisors don't know what's going on with it. And so EstateSpace's focus and aim is to help our families realize better economic outcomes using technology when it comes on financials.
Yeah. Something that the audience won't see because we've clipped it out is the interruptions of family. And on a personal note, How does, as a founder yourself, I think one thing that's not discussed is setting the expectations with family, and you're on this journey. It's a high velocity. It's a lot of focus. I know you do your best to time block and separate time, so it's very consistent. But how is that conversation with family? What advice would you give another founder who's jumping into starting their own company, but obviously has other commitments as well?
First, you have to take care of yourself. Then you take care of your family, and then you go to work, and then you do a good job. That's what I do. That's what I advise. It's the number one thing. You can't take care of someone else if you can't take care of yourself. If I have an interruption right now and my child needs me, I'm going to go take care of my child, because if anything, it just made this podcast and this interview with you better and more personal. Right. And so everybody accepts that now, which is great. And my conversation is that I'm partnered number one with my wife, right? And so she understands that if I need time, that she'll support me in that, and vice versa. So that's always my 1, 2, 3 when it comes to any day, anytime.
Yeah, I love that. It's very simple, but I'm sure it's difficult to maintain, but it's effective as well. Going back to EstateSpace, what are the biggest challenges that it faces today?
So I think right now we're scaling, and our number one challenge right now is adoption. It's not needing it, right? The need is there. They want it, and it's really helping them get onboarded technically.
Yeah.
And so as with any problem, we see innovation, right? We see an opportunity, and the company right now is going to shift our focus as we close out our capital raise for right now. And we're going to start to look and model EstateSpace services arm and look to staff that so that we can really provide that service. And that onboarding is kind of like, once they get through that, we have a very, very high retention rate. So we want to make sure that we can support that onboarding piece, and then let them get to other services. Because you can kind of think of EstateSpace like it's something that all of our clients have needed, but it's like we've built an ERP platform. So it's like this huge glass of water, and it's SaaS. So it's not like they can just get one piece or a little part of it. They get all of it. And so all of it is a lot. So we try to help make sure that like we are their liaison, and we hold their hand through like drinking that glass of water versus drowning in it, right? And so that would be probably our biggest right now challenge that we're working to solve for between our company and our partners.
Yeah. If everything goes well, what's the long-term vision for EstateSpace?
Well, so everything will go well. It's only a matter of time. But I think our long-term vision is to make sure that we maintain why the company is in existence, right? And that's to help the families and the people that we serve. So long term, while we're privately held now, we operate institutionally, kind of behind the scenes. And so I don't know what that will lead to. I know that we are built to go a couple of different directions, whether we do 3 more series and IPO it, or we sell it, right? It is that we do. I won't do anything that would hurt the integrity of the brand that we've built and the product that's serving our clients and the services behind it, because we built this company on relationship capital, right? Like I said, we started it from another services business. And, you talk about legacy software, right? That's like people aspire to do that. But we actually have technology that serves a family's legacy. Like today we're financial asset performance physically and financially. We're operational efficiencies. But we're going to the world's first dynamic estate plan, right? Asset succession, end-to-end financial transactions, right? Like that's where we're ultimately heading with EstateSpace. And so wherever we go in the future, we have to just make sure, and I will always safeguard the legacy platform that we've built to support the legacies of all the families and businesses that we serve.
Yeah. I'm going to hit you with a few lightning round questions here. First question is, what's the hardest part of your job?
The hardest part of my job is going to be staying focused, right? I think that's probably the hardest part of my job.
Yeah. And if you were to have more time spent in one particular area, what would you want to spend more time on in your day-to-day?
Non-business stuff. So I'd love to be able to spend more me time on different parts of the day versus being glued to my chair or my desk from time to time.
Yeah. If you weren't working on EstateSpace, what would you be working on?
Something.
Anything?
I mean, I'm progress driven. So I'm always doing something. So if I wasn't working on EstateSpace, I'd be doing something that would probably be equated to working for my wife.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Whether it was early in your career or now, what books or people have influenced you the most?
Well, I mean, I started with the E-Myth Revisited. I started with Traction. And those were probably the two books that really helped me see how I wanted to be an entrepreneur and how to really serve it well. So yeah, I'd say those were those were the top two books that I started with.
Yeah. And I guess the last question for our founders out there, how do you define your go-to-market strategy? What do you look at? Are you looking at kind of the user feedback? Are you seeing what's out in the market and how technology is being better adopted? Are you going and talking to a bunch of consultants on the phone? What would you advise other founders to do in terms of figuring out their go-to-market strategy? And also the evolution of it, obviously it changes as time goes on, but what would be your advice to founders?
Yeah, well, I think when you're first getting started, like any business I start with a thesis. Like, what is that, right? Why do we exist? What are we going to do, and how are we going to do it? And out of that kind of can grow your original go-to market strategy. My advice is to kind of stay on the bleeding edge of it, right? So, like I say, I'm the number one cloud ERP in the ultra high net worth market, right? For non-financial aspects. Well, nobody can dispute that, right? But I obviously want to have hundreds of thousands and millions of users and I'm going to be much bigger than where we are today. So I always like to have our go-to market strategy defendable, but also like it should be your aim, right? Like your campaigns can be some of the things, but I always want your strategy to be the aim of where you want it to be, because it's kind of just like if you're walking, you look where you're going, right? And so make your go-to market be that aim. And then make sure that you're focusing that strategy behind it on outcomes and results, right? That's what people are ultimately buying, is the outcome and the result. So, and that's again, easier said than done. It comes with kind of the evolution, but always start with making your main, what are you and why? Make that aim where you want to go as a business.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have, or you would have liked to answer?
I guess I might have asked myself maybe what are the things that you feel like, what are maybe the top three things that you would advise to a founder or entrepreneur?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
what would you do?
My answer would have, part of my answer was given, right? So first you need to find a really great advisor. The second thing that I always recommend is finding like people. So don't just have like a peer and a network, but like I'm a SaaS founder and a CEO. So I surround myself with other SaaS founder and CEOs. Yes, you can read books, but I learned so much more from conversations with other SaaS founders and CEOs than I could ever read in a book.
Yeah.
Things that I might take away immediately and start to employ in my business like tomorrow, because it's just such a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
And then I think the third thing is always slowing down to speed up, right? Really focusing on planning. It's the least expensive thing that you can do when you're looking to actually get started and starting out, or you're going from one horizon of growth to another. And then using those first two things, getting good advice, asking good questions. The more questions I can ask, the better that's kind of the scale I use to know that I'm doing a really good job as our founder and CEO.
Yeah. Jonathan, it's been incredible having you on the show. And I know we're at time here, but I think we could probably record another episode with even more depth knowledge and getting updates on some really exciting things that you're building. But where can our audience get involved? Where can we not only see the technology, but if we're a customer, view it? What are your LinkedIn's? What's your website? Where can we find you? And where can we be a supporter of EstateSpace?
Awesome. No, great question. And thank you. Great job today. I really appreciate your time here. We keep it super simple, right? That's kind of been our theme here today. So you can go to estatespace.com. We're SaaS, so you can simply go find out, self-identify, self-qualify. You can just get started all by yourself. As soon as you feel that we're right for you, we feel that we're right for us. You can find us on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. I'm always looking to make new connections and have meaningful conversations. And our support team, if you reach out through our website, will absolutely be in touch, and look forward to talking to you.
Amazing, Jonathan. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and thank you so much for being on the Behind Company Live podcast today.
Great time. Great job. Thank you so much.
Thanks.